at the end of the day, you have to change who you are. You have to be the kind of person that exercises, who eats vegetables, who eats protein, who works on their mental health, who works on their relationships, who saves money. Like, it's about who you are. And like, you have to embody that.
Welcome back to the Time Freedom Podcast, where you can learn how to rethink your work and your money to create a life you love right now. Join us for insights to help you find meaningful freedom so you can choose how and when and with whom you work for as long as you want. Here are your hosts, me, Brian Harriet, and Kirby Dennison. Today on the podcast, we welcome Dr. Sam Chenkin. Sam is a chiropractor, exercise physiologist, and personal trainer based in Alameda, California. She holds bachelor's and master's degree in exercise physiology and a doctorate in chiropractic. Sam recently launched her own training and rehab business called Pivot to Health, offering virtual and in-person services built around personalized long-term care. Oh, and she's also my personal trainer. Welcome, everybody, back to the Time Freedom Podcast. Kirby and I are excited today to have Dr. Sam Chenkin on. Sam is my personal trainer, and I'm very excited to have you on, Sam, because as I've worked with people, and especially as people get closer to having time freedom and having more financial freedom, usually what happens is like this shift away from like work, and start shifting towards health, personal fitness, those sorts of things. Now, I know you don't believe that should be the first time that you start to look at that. And I'm sure we'll get all into that. But that's why it's kind of top of mind. And I think it would be very interesting for people who are listening to a topic like about time freedom to hear some thoughts. And so what I wanted to talk about today was kind of a variety of things. One is you are an early reader of my book, and so I'm excited to get that perspective. Also, as we've done workouts together, including this morning at 5:30, and I'm still recovering from it, you have drawn comparisons between working out and finance, which I think is interesting. And and then of course, I want to, have you tell us whatever you can about fitness and training and all of those sorts of things, because I think that will be helpful.
Cool.
So how does that sound?
Oh, great. Awesome.
Cool. But before we get into the good stuff, we ask a question of all of our guests, and then we also answer. But what is something that few people know about you?
I had to think about this one, but I guess I'm gonna go with that. My first year of college, I ran D3 because I was an avid runner at a Quaker school. And then, so I could do cross country, but then I decided, like academically, educationally, it wasn't really at my level. I transferred to University of Miami for my sophomore year. And I decided I didn't want to give up the athletic life because I'm crazy. And I wanted to wake up at 5 a.m. to work out and go to the boathouse. So I walked on, knowing nothing about rowing, to the rowing team as a novice. They had this thing where you could walk on and get the perks of a D1 athlete, but no money. But it was an experience. It was an interesting time, especially because I'm 5'4" and most of the girls are 6 feet plus. It's a team sport. I'm used to like individual, like running, swimming,
So
both.
you weren't the person that sits in the front, but you
No.
were like in between those two.
That's the coxswain. They tell you what to do. They don't row. And then you have the back, which is the bow, which kind of steers. But everyone has to be in sync. And fun fact, rowing is more of a leg sport than an arm sport. Like, it's not like kayaking.
Yeah.
Like, the rowing machines in the gym where you move your legs up and down? That's how it is in a boat. It's not just arms. It's like you move up and down on like a slide. So, fun fact.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I thought there was an element of that you might be the coxswain, because as a trainer, you do a fair amount of telling you what to do.
I'm good at that, but no, unfortunately.
That's awesome. Do you want to go next, Kirby, or should I?
You can go.
I thought when you said cross country, that's what crossed my mind. So
Okay.
I went out for cross country in 9th grade in high school, and I remember, it was hard. And what I remember was that at the end of the season, I was 105 pounds.
Oh
I
my
remember that. Like, I was small. I didn't like hit puberty until like sophomore, junior year, but
God.
I was short and small, but I was so exhausted after the first month or whatever. But we had a rule in our house, and I'm a rule follower, that if you started something, you had to finish it. And so I did one season of cross country, and then I stopped. I did not do it
One and done.
ever again. Yeah, I was the second slowest.
Okay. At least you're the slowest, it's all right.
One of the memories I had is that we had this one guy who was really good, and he would go out for a 1 to 1.5 mile run to warm up. And I remember thinking, that would be my whole
Oh,
workout.
that's common practice, Brian. That's common.
I know. Okay. All right, Kirby, what do you got?
All right. Well, I continue the running thing. I hated running in high school. My coach used every sport as conditioning for basketball.
Yeah.
And so I hated, like, he would make us run up and down the country roads. I lived in a small town, and he would drive in front of us and we would run behind the pickup. And we had to like keep up.
That's like a
But
movie. That's
aggressive.
so
yes,
cool.
yeah. It was
It's
crazy.
Rocky.
I don't know if that's
Yes.
in 2026, might be.
I know, probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to think that it wasn't that long ago I graduated, and somebody told me it was 17 years ago. So, like, that's not possible. But the thing that most people don't know is that I love running a 10K. Like, I don't know why, but I love
Me
it.
too.
At my very first 10K, I literally did not train at all. My friend called me like 2 weeks before
Wow.
and was like, "Hey, you want to run this 10K?" And I was like, "Okay." I didn't think anything about it. And it was kind of in the foothills of Colorado. And
Hilly.
I didn't think that it was that hilly there either, where this was. It was in a town called Kiowa. And I literally thought I was going to die.
And the altitude,
But I
right?
finished in an hour. So that was
That's
good.
Wow, 6
Yeah.
points. Wow.
Speaking of running and almost dying, our neighbor in Wisconsin, he finished a half marathon, not realizing that his appendix had burst halfway through.
Oh my
But
gosh.
he finished, although he doesn't really remember it.
Must be his claims
I
to
could
fame.
imagine not.
Jeez.
Yeah, but he survived. He's doing good, but he tells the story really well. Everyone's got to have one of those stories, like the Theo Casel's story.
I have one. I had a broken foot that I ran a race through.
Oh, geez.
But I feel like the appendix thing is kind of more impressive, but
Yeah.
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 My appendix ruptured and I definitely would not have been able to run. I couldn't even walk. So
I
I can't imagine running a race.
Yeah, how he tells that, it was just
Brutal.
crazy. All right, so before we get into our topic at hand, Sam, what we like to do is just have our guests give some basic demographics, personal, professional, not like the whole life story, but just it helps the listeners place, oh, this is someone in there.
Yes.
Or something like that.
Okay. So I just turned 30 last year, going to be 31 this coming April. Started my educational endeavors at University of Miami. I did my undergrad in exercise physiology. From there, I moved on and I did a master's in exercise physiology and nutrition in Brooklyn, New York at LIU. So I was there for about 2 years right before COVID. Then I came back to Florida during COVID. And then I decided I wanted more degrees. So I decided to go to chiropractic school in Daytona, Florida. So I did that right after COVID. That was 3 years. And then from there, I worked in Miami for about 2 years. And then I moved to California the last year and then worked in a clinic for the last year. And then I just basically the last month and a half fully kind of went on my own and first time entrepreneur, I guess. And I'm starting my own training, rehab business, virtual and in person. And then I'm going to be doing a little bit of independent contracting work as a chiropractor in California right now. And then seeing where that goes and building it and growing my brand. And then maybe in the future, a brick and mortar. I'm not sure yet. But anyways, my company is Pivot to Health. And basically the premise of my business is that I believe that hurdles happen in life. Life happens, right? Like you get sick, you get injured, you move, you have work stress, a million things happen, but your health needs to always be a part of your life, kind of like brushing your teeth. I like to encourage people to pivot, not stop, right? And that there's always a way, despite your limitations or however broken you think you are, there's still a way to move forward and navigate what you're dealing with. Sometimes it's hard to figure that out on your own. And I figured out a lot of things the hard way growing up, like through injuries and going to different professionals. And I think that's why I was so invested in being a learn-it-all and kind of figuring out all the intricacies of how I could figure out how to be optimal. And I just love it. Yeah, I just want to help people. I mean, I like helping anyone from, your teenager to your 80-year-olds because I feel health is your greatest investment. And I tell people all the time, I've never been able to live a life that feels really good if I was like sick or injured and in pain. And I feel like being able to show up as your best self and like your state, like your physical and mental state is so super impactful in how you can impact others and fill up other people's cups and just contribute the most and also enjoy it the most.
I've never had a personal trainer before until
Oh,
I
really?
was years old. Yep, never. And so much of what I learned about how to weight train and all those sorts of things was back from when I was in high school and like working out in college on my own or like watching my dad do it or something like that. And so that's what I've come to appreciate is like having updated knowledge about how to train and how to recover and how to do these things because I was just operating under old models. And I think that translates into business too, because I was also never one to hire a coach because I'm like, I can figure this out on myself, like a business coach.
Yeah.
But when you do that, you can make such advancements so much faster, And so, of course, you have to have the money to spend on it. But once you can get to that point, you can really accelerate your progress.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of coaches. Like, I think coaches need coaches. If I could afford a coach in every aspect of my life, I would buy it. But I have invested since I'm, 12 years old. My parents, I should say, invested, and then myself over the years into coaches, from training to nutrition to mental health, all different things because it's all connected. And what I will say is when you invest in a coach, one, they're keeping you accountable. Two, they're giving you a different perspective outside of yourself, especially with training. Even for myself, you're not going to program for yourself the exercises that you hate the most, but that you probably need the most, right?
I have one in mind
Yep.
that you
Is it
you do.
Bulgarian split squats, Brian?
Yes.
Maybe?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
for sure. I feel that pain too, Brian. I'm out.
It hurts so good though. Okay.
Yes,
That's true.
It's true, but you still don't want to do it unless someone's saying, "This is what we're doing."
And
Mhm.
then also just learning different people can give you a different perspective, like a cue. Maybe a coach told me something that then I pull out of my toolbox for this client and it clicks and it makes them execute something so much better. Or maybe it's a lifestyle tip that I got from someone else that I was able to put in my own words and give to a client and it connected with them in a deeper way that it really hit. It hit different. And having as many tools as you can and being able to pull out whatever you need for the person in front of you allows me to give the most individualized approach and connect to the most people. And if I didn't expose myself to multiple different people and different aspects of health and wellness, I wouldn't have that exposure and I wouldn't be able to give the knowledge that I have and share it. And then, I mean, I'm constantly wanting to invest in my learning and my growth because I never think I know the most. And I think if you do think that, then you're kind of stunting yourself. And I think it's the same way with finance. Like everyone has things, strengths and weaknesses in all aspects of their life. And hiring a coach or at least listening and learning, like reading a book or listening to a podcast about something that you know is a important aspect of building your most ideal and optimal life and just kind of diving deeper into it and being like, wow, that's so true and kind of obvious, but I would have never thought of it myself. I'm glad I listened to that or read about that. And maybe I can kind of shift something in my life that's going to kind of move the needle to where I want to go.
Yeah, and also like when you work with a coach, you obviously get all their expertise, right? So like so Sam also trains Claire, my wife, and tell the listeners what you were telling me this morning about how it's fun to do the more challenging thing and you can set it up.
Yeah. So I was telling Brian this morning that I really like training Claire and I've trained similar clients with different things, right? So it's very easy to train someone who's a very gifted athlete for the most part, right? Who has no restrictions, no injuries, moves like a perfect, specimen, right? But if you have someone that has injuries, limitations, it forces you as a fitness and health professional to have to really diversify, think out of the box, critically think, because it's like, how can I get this person to get the stimulus that I want, even though my options might be a little bit different? And it's like, how can I find the hardest thing that Claire can do well, where she feels empowered, she feels like she's moving forward and getting a workout, but it's also with the parameters that we're like not injuring her, we're not putting her in a position that is not ideal for her and her needs. And then also being able to pivot on the fly. Like Brian came in one day and he was like, I tweaked my back. I had a whole program planned and I was like, okay, no worries. We're fine. And I was able to just give him a good stimulus. We even mobility, like a targeted mobility and some targeted strength stuff that maybe was a little bit lighter loads, but we got him moving in a different plane. And then a couple of days later, he was like, my back feels better. But if I was very rigid or I didn't understand the body on a deeper level, I might be like, we're just going to stick to the plan, deal with it. Or maybe I would have not been able to give him an adequate stimulus so he achieved something that was adequate that day. If I didn't have multiple tools, like I took a FRC, functional range conditioning, and I'm able to do mobility and range of motion and creating tension. So I was able to teach him a skill that day, make him feel better, and do that kind of on the fly.
And that's one thing, for example, that I learned, which is, I don't remember if this was a specific number, but this is how I remember it. But like you're in pain. It's like, look at is it 50% or worse pain or 50% or less pain? And I'm like, it was 50% or less. And then the advice was to work through it.
Yeah.
And I never would have thought to do that.
Pain is very complex, right? Because everyone has a different pain tolerance because pain is subjective and it's neurological and physiological, right? Somebody I could MRI off the street could have 5 herniated disc, severe scoliosis, and they could report to me that they have 0 pain, right? Then I could MRI another person who says they're in excruciating 10 out of 10 pain and they have 1 bulging disc that's half the size of the person who says they are not in pain, right? Pain is so multifaceted. So not all hurt equals harm, but then there are red flag scenarios where pain needs to be addressed as so. So that's when you have to figure out what kind of person is this that I'm dealing with? What is their tolerance, right? What are the red flag signs that would make me think like, hey, no, we have to go to the emergency room, right? Or no, this is not a red flag sign. We just have to kind of pivot, figure out what we can do that's not irritating that, like poking the bear too much, and maybe a staying 5 out of 10 pain if that person has a tolerance that they can really pinpoint. If not, you have to watch the person. What is their facial expressions? How are they moving through that movement? There's a lot of ways to kind of see what someone's experiencing, maybe if they can't articulate it because they're not in tune with their body on that level, or if they're the kind of person who's like, no pain, no gain, and I'm just going to push through and kill myself. You have to do that. And that's where building a relationship with the person and knowing who they are and how they think, and connecting with them comes in.
So can we shift the discussion just a little bit?
Yeah.
And what you said made me think of this and why I want to shift it. But you are talking about like these skills and skills that you've developed like over the last 10 years or longer, not on your own.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's what I talk about in the book, which is
takes a village.
Yeah. And also like the best business to start is one that you already have developed skills in and you know how to offer the service. Basically, that's what you're doing. And so I want to just ask a little bit about that. So how did you come about and decide that you wanted to start this business? I know it's obviously very fresh. Some people say, oh, let's start a business. Oh, it's so risky because I'm going to start a new AI company. Yeah. Well, no, you don't have to do that. Like the better, less risky business is one that is a service that you already offer. It's connecting with people you already know and using skills that you've already developed. And I see that in your experience. And so I just want to ask kind of your perspective on that and how that all works.
When I was getting my master's degree in New York, I was a trainer at Equinox. And that was that was about like 9 years ago. Huh? And so I was a student, but then I was also training people in real life. And then when COVID happened, Equinox went virtual. So it kind of forced me into this virtual training I had never done before. So I learned a new set of skills, meaning how can I, with my words, make people do what I want them to do? How can I, with my eyes, see little things, say it with my mouth to make them execute it, right? So I became a very good cuer, and I have things that I pull out of my pocket that get people to do the thing that I want them to do or mentally feel the thing that I want them to feel. And cues vary. Some things work for different people. Sometimes I have to use tactile things like, okay, I'm going to put the box here and you have to touch the box, or I'm going to have you touch your butt to the wall to learn a hinge. So different things where I don't need to touch the person, but I can make them have the most effective workout as if I were there. Many of my clients will say it's pretty much the same exact thing, literally.
in
whether
person.
with you or without you, because I had that skill set. So it was kind of a hidden blessing, COVID. But anyways, after that, I kind of took some of my Equinox clients and went on my own in like not a full on business, but just like a side hustle basically. And then I did that through chiropractic school at a lower level. Like I cut some clients down because I had a lot of schoolwork, but I kept it going. So I've been doing it for the past 7 years, basically, just at a lower scale and not as my full time job, just a side hustle of training rehab virtually with people in New York, people in Florida. And then once I became a chiropractor, I still had some clients, kept doing it. And then I worked in a clinic in Miami and then in Alameda and kept training people on the side, but was a chiropractor and did some scoliosis work in clinic as well. And I just realized that I'm the kind of person who, like Brian talks about, really wants a flexible life. I like to spend time with people. I like to kind of look at them in a 360 view, which requires taking more time with them. It at times, which kind of also makes you have to kind of charge a higher price point to spend more time with people, or have the ability to do so. And I decided I want to do it more my way and step into who I've always kind of wanted to be. And I think, when you're doing all these schoolings and you're working for other people, you're always like, I'll get to that point when I do my own thing, and later in the future, whatever. And I decided that, I wasn't living my best life and as happy as maybe I could be. And for me, I look at it like you only have one life. And like, if you're not thriving, you're not impacting, you can't show up and do the thing that you love the most in the most authentic way to you, then what's the true point? And it just hit really hard for me, I think, this year. And I think, like I said, pain can be a great teacher because it can force you to get out of your comfort zone maybe sooner than you wanted to. And that's what happened to me. I was uncomfortable, frustrated. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to do the thing, right? I know that I have some customer base and I started putting myself out there more in like even January, to the people in my area, the people at my old job offering a different service, more of a training rehab front, and then networking with other people in the community to get some kind of independent contracting jobs. I'm collaborating with other chiropractors in the technique that I like. So I was kind of like setting myself up. I wasn't like jumping with no net. It's not a guaranteed net. It's not like I have, everything set up, but I could tell that I was getting people to say yes and that I knew that I have something of value that I could give to people. And I know that I'm a hard worker. And so, yeah, I'm just trusting that I'm going to put in the work and evolve and things will come together as long as I have patience and I'm open to opportunity right now. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I love that you were setting all that up while you were still employed.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like you stop working and then you're like, oh my God, I have to figure
Yeah.
out all
It
these
wasn't fully
things.
set up by any means. It wasn't like I had
Right.
this.
Are you ever?
Yeah. So it's still definitely stress. But I think once you make the leap, you feel better because you're like, okay, I'm in it, I'm in control. And I think you have to be a certain kind of person that wants that. You want to make the rules and you want to design the life and you don't want that extreme structure. I like structure, but I like it in a way where it allows me to work in multiple aspects of health, wellness, and fitness and, connect with multiple people. And so I just feel more like myself and more like I'm in the life or trying to build a life that's not just a job, but a career. And I think that's the real thing. Like a job is something for me where you clock in and it's not like, these are my people. Like this is my life and part of who I am, because for me, it's part of who I am. It's not just what I do.
What you're talking about is discovering, is having this life inflection point or whatever you want to call it. But you're only like, this was when you're 30 years old. I don't know. It took me till 43
Really?
to have that moment. Maybe because I was just heads down, just do what you're supposed to do. My point is that's great. And you're lucky because I wish, although it's not that what I did for those 13 years, those extra years wasn't bad.
Everything kind of adds up. I'm realizing like even the worst situations, the best situations, every interaction, no matter what, it's not necessarily all fun in the process of it, but it teaches you something about life, about yourself, about what you want. So I think the lesson I've learned in the past year is that it's really a valuable lesson to learn what you don't want, like for sure, and
Yeah.
what doesn't work for you, and to zoom in on what you do want. And it doesn't become that clear, I think, until you are in it, you know?
Kirby, how old were you when you had your life inflection point?
Maybe?
You, you've gone
Let's
through this
see.
too.
So 32. I
Okay,
would have been
pretty close.
32.
Okay.
I think that the difference too is somewhat to your point, Brian, is that we go through like your generation, that's all you
There you
knew.
go.
Our
Yep.
generation and the younger generation is so different already that it evolved so much faster. And so you just, as it evolved, you were just at a different point. I mean, I think it would have all been, you know,
Relative, yeah.
relative, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's a huge difference. And like, if you look at the last 13 years, like how much has technology changed? How much has everything changed? And where that
Oh,
wasn't really an
sure.
option before the
Right.
virtual stuff or,
True.
you
True.
know,
True.
so I think there is
There was more barriers at
some societal like inflection points too
And
that
just
came along with it.
demographic differences, and that's why,
Yeah.
for example, why I was surprised, but I shouldn't have been, when I wrote a book for 45-year-olds and then people in their 30s are like, oh, yeah, I get this. It's because
Mhm.
they're already thinking about the stuff that took me until all the way till I was 45 to
I
realize.
think it's exposure because, like, even,
Mhm.
if you go online, people talk about, finance, relationships, health,
Mhm.
all those things. Like the big buckets of life, I think are more center of mind to younger people now because of the exposure to it. Whereas, like, before the internet, before social media, before you maybe followed people that you look up to or followed people's lives that you maybe want aspects of it, you just could block it out because you just only see your neighbors and your parents
Mhm.
and your
Exactly.
Yeah.
schoolmates.
Mhm.
You're not looking at what's necessarily like possible other than what's
Mhm.
around you at the time. So now which is good and bad, right? Because it could be a little bit
Yeah.
overwhelming, comparison, all those things. But there is a
Mhm.
positive side in that you kind of maybe set different expectations about what you want earlier and what's possible.
Something we were talking about just this morning. Again, I love the tie between
Fitness and
health
finance.
and fitness. Yeah, and the one thing that you said that struck me, and we didn't talk about it specifically, was, you could do all these fancy exercises, but really it comes down to like a few basic moves. And the same is true in finance. Like if you get the basic things right, you're going to get 90% of the way there. And then you don't have to spend all your time on all that fancy stuff. Like if you want to at the end,
I
sure,
see.
fine.
Like,
Yeah.
right?
And then I could tell you were passionate about it because you just kept rattling off all these things like hinge, push, pull, blah, blah.
So I'll go into it for you. You probably know better. In finance, the basics compounded over time and consistency is everything because it's
Yeah.
what you do sometimes, it's what you do most of the time that matters and that gets you the results. And I think there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of exercises. And the same thing with finance. There's probably a lot of conflicting opinions, even if there are basic principles that people get confused about and then they try to do too much and then they get burnt out or they go too extreme and it bites them in the butt. With on the fitness side at least, the basics never die and the people that are the healthiest and have the best body composition and all those things are doing the basics forever and ever and ever and ever with some fine tuning to it. And what I was talking to Brian about was that there's basic exercise. Like everyone, your grandma and your teenager should be doing squat, hinge, push, pull, carry, single leg, and power work. And those are categories. And then within those categories, there's endless opportunities, like I can do a split squat, I can do a lunge, I could do a lateral lunge, I could do a lunge with rotation, I could do a single leg hinge, I could do a kettlebell hinge, I could do a staggered stance hinge. I can do a barbell squat, kettlebell squat, high rack squat, overhead squat. Like there's a million things to do, right? If I don't want to change the weight, I can manipulate things like tempo. So I can lower down in the exercise for 3 seconds and then drive up fast. Or I can do a pause. I can go to the bottom of a lunge. I can hold for 2 seconds and then I can drive up, right?
Mhm.
Or
Love that.
I can make it more complex. If I want to maybe I could do a squat to a press, right? I could do a reverse lunge to a step up. So I can add complexity, I can add tempo, I can add pauses, so I can increase time under tension because it's all about creating mechanical tension, creating enough stimulus so that you get an adaptation. So it's not about the exercise. So when people ask me what's one exercise that's going to do the thing or fix my life, I could never answer that honestly because it's not one exercise, right?
Describe the one that you talked about that was like on social media or whatever.
I
It's
was just
funny.
making up a silly example, but like on social media, sometimes people overcomplicate it and they're standing on a Bosu ball on one leg, juggling. And it's like, this is how you get a great body, or this is the next exercise. And one, it's dangerous. Two, if I'm doing something so complicated and game nature, I can't go that heavy. I can't work that intensely. I can't push my edge, right? So we have to understand what adaptation are we trying to get here? Are we trying to do something just to play? Because that's fine, right? Or for instance, a lot of group fitness classes preach that they're strength training, and they're really not, because you cannot possibly be working to 1 to 2 reps in reserve, meaning you could only do 2 more bicep curls or 2 more push-ups or 1 more squat, right? If you have like 10-second rest and you're doing 30 reps, right? Like it just doesn't make sense because like force and velocity, and you need recovery to be able to repeat a hard effort. So those things are good. If you like Orange Theory or you like whatever fitness group cardio weightlifting class, like that's cool. And I think it could be a part of a well-rounded routine, but I don't think it's a substitute for actual strength training that's individualized for you and your goals and that's progressive over time. Because if it's not progressive over time, it doesn't work either, because then you stay the same. Probably like in finance, right? If you only invest every other month for the rest of your life, or you just keep the same exact portfolio, you could probably tell me this better than I'm saying it, right? You won't get the same return on your investment. So same thing with fitness. I can't just be like, hey, Brian, do this one workout with the same weight for the rest of your life and you'll get a good return on your investment for the rest of your life. It doesn't work that way.
But also, if you're changing things up constantly and you don't really know what's going on, you never get good at it.
And you can't reap the benefits because you need adaptation, just like your bank account or the stock market or whatever needs time to compound. You need to watch trends. You can't just jump the gun because you're impatient.
Yep. But this is the stuff I thought that going into meeting with you, I thought like boot camps were the thing, like that was the thing. Or what's the Reebok version? CrossFit. Right.
It's not bad.
They're not bad, right? But it's not
the goal.
strength.
What's the
Right.
goal? CrossFit is based on time. It's like, how fast can I do this thing, right? How fast can I complete the workout? So like if you're going that fast, especially if you don't have a good baseline, right? And especially if you're trying to build muscle, how can you possibly do that? Like you can't connect your mind with your
Yep.
body if you're trying to do as many push presses as possible and then go into a 400-meter sprint. Like that's never going to happen.
I love what you said. What's the goal? Because that is so true about investing. For example, like the old Brian would have been like, crypto, never. But now, well, are you a 20-year-old guy with nobody that depends on you and you want to take a big risk on it? Sure, that could work if that's your goal. But like if you want time freedom, there's a way to invest to align with that. And so it sounds very consistent.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you tell us more? I think this has been really great. And
I'm so into it.
yeah, I was hoping that you could tell people a little bit more about your business, but also where to go and look for you and how to stay in touch with you.
Okay. So my business is Pivot to Health. Our motto is Move, Heal, Thrive. And a little bit about it also is our symbol is the butterfly, which has a meaning to it, meaning we evolve over our lifespan, and kind of like metamorphosis, meaning like the butterfly like keeps evolving and keeps doing its thing despite changes throughout time, right? And I think that's super relatable to health, fitness, and wellness because it needs to be one of those like non-negotiables in our life. Anyways, like my business is virtual and in person. Maybe looking into, like potentially in the future, like a bi-coastal option of like Florida and California, depending on how things work out. Basically virtual training and rehab one-on-one with programming. So if you train with me a minimum of twice per week, I give you programming in an app with videos, sets and reps personalized for you, constant communication via messaging in the app, video analysis if you put it in. So that's one option. And I do 8, 12, and 20 packages, sessions for that. And then my second option is a subscription model. Once a month, we do one session where we game plan, go over exercises, come up with what your goals are for that month. And then I give you a 4-week block program that you execute on your own and we communicate in the app. So that's the second option. People want to just do it on their own time, don't want to pay the one-on-one. They can still have a very individualized one-on-one type experience with feedback and communication. And then the other option is I'm going to do some concierge chiropractic work and some work out of some offices as an independent contractor in California, and then maybe like some home visits, depending on if I'm in Florida or California.
So what is your website, and
Yeah.
is there a place that people can follow you?
Yeah. So my website is pivottohealth.net, and it's also in the link in my bio on Instagram, and my handle is at Dr. Sam Chenkin, Chenkin.
We'll put that in the show notes
Okay,
too.
cool. And basically on my website, it lays out all the options. I also allow for a 15-minute complimentary call that you can schedule to see if we're a good fit. If I can give you some tips, we can talk about your goals and see what kind of option would be best for you. And there's also an intake form where I get through history and go over all of that before we would meet a call, and we'd be able to set up a game plan. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much for sharing all the cool information and drawing the parallels between finance and health. It's really been great.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Super fun. Thank
All
you
right.
so much. Bye, guys.
Hey, listeners of the podcast, I have a special deal for you. You can now pre-order my book, Time Freedom, if you go to the link timefreedombook.com. And my special is, normally, if you order 3 books, you can get the audiobook free immediately. If you put the promo code podcast, you can order 1 book at your favorite retailer, Amazon, bookshop.org, Barnes & Noble, wherever, and put your order number in the form, put the promo code podcast, and I'll immediately send you the audiobook for free right away, so you don't have to wait. Pre-order the hard copy book, get the audiobook free. Thank you so much for your support. timefreedombook.com.